Have you ever wondered why some people seem to effortlessly draw others toward them, without trying, without pretending, without playing games? Their presence feels magnetic, their confidence quiet but undeniable, as if the air itself bends slightly around them. What you're sensing is not charm, not beauty, not even charisma. It's coherence. It's what happens when a person's self-image finally aligns with their deeper truth. For most of human history, attraction was seen as something external, something earned by beauty, status, or skill. But Jung would say, attraction begins in the unconscious. It is not about what we show to the world, but about what we reconcile within ourselves. Every human being carries two stories, the one they tell others and the one they hide from themselves. The distance between the two is what creates inner conflict, and attraction lives and dies in that distance. Imagine a woman who has spent her life playing small, shrinking her light because the world once told her that confidence was arrogance. She learned to survive through self-effacement. If I make myself likable enough, quiet enough, good enough, maybe they'll stay. And so she builds a self-image based not on truth, but on adaptation. The mask becomes so polished, so seamless, that she forgets it is a mask. But deep inside, her shadow stirs, a repressed power, a voice that refuses to stay silent. When she enters a room, people sense not her kindness or intelligence, but the dissonance between who she is and who she pretends to be. They cannot name it, but they feel it, a subtle resistance, a sense that something is missing. The shadow, Jung said, is the part of us we refuse to acknowledge, but ironically, it is also the source of our vitality. The qualities we repress, our anger, sensuality, ambition, independence, do not disappear. They sink into the unconscious, where they wait. And while the ego believes it's protecting us by keeping those aspects hidden, the cost is authenticity. When we deny the shadow, we also deny the full spectrum of our attraction. Because attraction is not about perfection. It is resonance. When someone is whole within themselves, shadow and light, they emit an energy of truth. And truth is irresistible. Think of it this way. The unconscious communicates not in words, but in symbols, posture, tone, silence. When you enter a room, before you say a word, your energy announces you. Your gestures, your stillness, your eyes, all tell the world whether you are at war with yourself or at peace. A person who has reconciled their contradictions, who has integrated the lost parts of their psyche, exudes a groundedness that cannot be faked. You feel safe near them, not because they try to please you, but because they no longer need to. What would happen then if you radically changed your self-image, not by building a new persona, but by dismantling the old one? Most people attempt transformation through addition, new habits, new affirmations, new aesthetics. But real change, Jung would argue, is subtractive. It's about removing the false identities that obscure the self, the eternal archetype within every human being that is whole, wise, and radiant. This is why many people chase attraction and never find it. They think it's a performance, but it's a revelation. They believe it's about strategy, but it's about surrender. True magnetism begins when you stop trying to be desirable and start being real. When the mask falls, energy flows again, and energy, free, authentic, unforced, is what others recognize as beauty. But this process is not easy, because the moment you change your self-image, the old world begins to crumble. People who once adored you may grow distant, the dynamics you relied on may no longer work. When the false self dissolves, the structures built around it collapse too. Jung called this the Negredo stage of transformation, the dark night of the soul where the ego resists death. It feels like losing everything, but what you're really losing is illusion. To change your self-image, you must first ask, who taught you who you are? Whose reflection have you been living in? Most people inherit their identity through projection. The expectations of parents, society, lovers. A daughter learns to mirror her mother's fears. A son absorbs his father's unhealed wounds. Without awareness, you live someone else's unfinished story, mistaking their voice for your own. The moment you start questioning those inherited images, the unconscious stirs. Dreams become vivid, memories surface, synchronicities appear. You begin to notice the patterns that have shaped your relationships, the same rejection, the same type of partner, the same emotional script. Each repetition is not punishment, but invitation, the psyche's way of asking, will you see me this time? When you finally look, not to judge, but to understand, you awaken something ancient inside you, the self that has been waiting behind every mask. And when that self begins to take shape, attraction changes form. You no longer crave attention because you are no longer starved for reflection. You become the mirror. At that moment, people sense something different. Not the hunger to be seen, but the serenity of one who already knows who they are. It's an archetypal presence, the energy of the king or queen, not seeking approval, but radiating assurance. This is the secret of instant attraction. It is not something you create. It is something you uncover. Most people spend their lives circling around an invisible center, mistaking the fragments of their persona for the whole of who they are. They live inside the narrow confines of their self-image, an image shaped by approval, rejection, and survival. Yet beneath that image lies something vast, something that does not crave validation, but emanates it. The journey toward that center begins the moment a person grows weary of pretending. Carl Jung once wrote that the privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. Yet to the unconscious, this becoming feels like death. Because before a new image can emerge, the old one must dissolve. This dissolution often begins subtly, a restlessness, a quiet dissatisfaction, a feeling that the life you're living no longer fits. Outwardly, everything may appear intact, but internally, the psyche begins to rebel. You start noticing the small betrayals, how often you say yes when you mean no, how often you perform warmth while feeling cold, how often you shrink from your own reflection. This is the moment when attraction disappears, not because you've lost beauty, but because you've lost coherence. Others can sense when your inner world and outer image are misaligned. The unconscious always communicates, even through silence. A person who hides their shadow repels as much as they yearn to attract. Their smile feels forced, their energy uncertain, because somewhere inside they've disowned the very qualities that once made them alive. The shadow contains everything you reject in yourself, yet it also hides everything you secretly admire. The confidence you envy in others? It may be the confidence you buried. The sensuality you find intimidating. Perhaps it was once yours before shame taught you to repress it. The independence you resent? It may be the freedom your inner self still craves. The human psyche is symmetrical in this way. What you despise and what you desire are two sides of the same projection. This is why Jung insisted that relationships are mirrors of the unconscious. You do not fall in love with another person. You fall in love with the reflection of your own undeveloped potential. You are drawn not to who they are, but to who you could become through them. In this sense, attraction is not random. It is revelation. Every person who captivates you is a messenger from your shadow, holding a fragment of your forgotten self. And yet, most people resist this truth. Instead of seeing relationships as mirrors, they see them as validations. They seek someone to confirm the image they've built, not someone to challenge it. But love that merely confirms your ego keeps you asleep. Love that confronts you awakens the soul.
Imagine a woman who always attracts emotionally unavailable men. She convinces herself that she's unlucky, that men today fear commitment. But beneath that story lies a deeper truth. She herself fears intimacy. Perhaps she equates closeness with loss of autonomy or vulnerability with danger. So unconsciously, she chooses partners who cannot stay, ensuring she never has to face her own fear of being seen. Her attraction patterns are not flaws, they are mirrors reflecting her unfinished work. Jung called this process projection withdrawal. It's the moment you stop blaming others for your patterns and begin reclaiming your power. Each time you say, "He made me feel unworthy," you're projecting authority onto someone else. When you say, "Why did he reject me?" your psyche might answer, "Because you've rejected yourself first." The real transformation begins when you realize no one can treat you in a way that doesn't already echo how you treat yourself internally. To change your self-image, then, is to reclaim those projections. It's to look at every person who once captivated or wounded you and ask, what part of me do they carry? That question alone can dismantle years of illusion. You begin to see that attraction has always been the psyche's compass, guiding you back to your own missing pieces. This is why authentic transformation often feels lonely, because once you start integrating your shadow, you stop needing others to play its role for you anymore. You no longer seek rescuers, persecutors, or victims, because those archetypes dissolve when you withdraw projection. Suddenly, the world feels emptier, but also freer. The noise quiets, and in that silence, something sacred stirs. This is the self-awakening, the unshakable center that does not depend on validation. When you begin to live from this place, attraction becomes effortless. You stop chasing it. Instead, you embody it. People sense a presence in you, a calm intensity, an inner stillness that feels like home. It's not loud, not performative, not seductive in the ordinary sense. It's magnetic because it's true. And yet, this stage is not the end. It's the initiation. Because now that you've touched authenticity, the world will test it. Old patterns will reappear, not to punish you, but to see if you have truly changed. You will meet people who trigger your wounds, situations that tempt you to slip back into the false self. The key is not to fight these moments, but to stay conscious through them. Each time you resist the pull to regress, to prove, to please, to perform, you strengthen the bridge between your conscious self and the unconscious. This bridge is what Jung called individuation, the process of becoming whole. It is not about becoming perfect or good, but about becoming real. And in that reality, attraction becomes something divine, the energy of life itself, unfiltered and whole.
There comes a point in every journey of transformation when the old self begins to crumble, not with noise and chaos, but with silence. You no longer recognize the person in the mirror. The words that once felt natural now sound rehearsed. The faces around you still smile, but something between you has shifted. You are no longer playing the same role, and the script of your life has begun to rewrite itself. Jung described this dissolution as an alchemical process, the nigredo, the blackening. It is the stage where the false gold of your persona melts under the heat of awareness. To change your self-image is not to improve it, it is to burn away everything that is not real. The ego resists this fiercely. It clings to the familiar, to validation, to the comfort of certainty. But what you call certainty is often just repetition, and what you call identity is often just defense. In this darkness, attraction vanishes, not because you are less appealing, but because you are being stripped of all the unconscious games that once drew people in. You no longer flirt with validation. You stop performing confidence. You stop chasing love as a substitute for self-connection. And in that silence, an existential loneliness arises. It feels like losing your reflection entirely. This is where most people turn back. They mistake emptiness for failure, solitude for regression. But what is actually happening is the purification of desire itself.
The attention you once sought from others must now come from a different source, from the self. The archetype of the lover, once projected outward, begins to awaken within you. You become the beloved and the beholder, the mirror and the image. You begin to sense the presence of two forces within you, the ego, which fears death, and the self, which seeks wholeness. Their dialogue shapes every emotion you feel. The ego says, "I must be loved to be safe." The self whispers, "You are safe when you remember who you are." The ego says, "I must prove my worth." The self says, "Worth cannot be proven, it can only be realized." And as this conversation deepens, something extraordinary occurs. The war within you starts to end. Jung would call this the conjunctio, the sacred marriage of opposites, light and dark, masculine and feminine, strength and softness. It is not the destruction of the ego, but its integration. The animus and anima, the inner masculine and feminine, begin to harmonize. The part of you that once sought protection now becomes your protector. The part that longed to be seen now learns to see. From this integration arises a new kind of magnetism that cannot be faked. It is the quiet power of someone who no longer performs polarity, but embodies it. The lover within no longer seeks completion through another, but radiates completeness through being. You become what Jung called a living symbol, a human expression of unity amidst contradiction. To others, this new energy feels like mystery. They can't quite name what draws them towards you. It's not beauty, though you may appear more beautiful. It's not confidence, though you may seem more grounded. It's something subtler, the peace of someone who has stopped abandoning themselves. You no longer demand love, you invite it. You no longer chase connection, you emanate it. This is the secret essence of attraction. It is not pursuit, but presence. Attraction in its highest form is the recognition of the self in another. When two individuated souls meet, there is no game, no manipulation, no anxiety. There is only resonance, a meeting of frequencies. The outer chemistry mirrors the inner alignment. But this kind of connection only becomes possible when both people have faced their own shadow. Until then, relationships remain a battlefield for unconscious projection. It is in this space of awakening that the Stoics and Jungians converge. The Stoics taught, you become invincible when you no longer depend on external things. Jung might say, you become magnetic when you no longer depend on external mirrors. Both paths lead to the same truth: freedom. Freedom is not detachment from love, it is detachment from illusion. When you no longer need others to validate your image, love becomes pure again. You begin to give without fear of depletion, to receive without fear of dependence. You no longer ask, do they see me, but can I remain myself in their presence? This is the paradox of attraction. The less you chase it, the more it follows. The less you demand love, the more love finds you. Because attraction is simply energy seeking coherence. When you are whole, your energy is coherent, and the universe responds in kind. And yet this coherence must be tended like a flame. Every day, the old patterns whisper back, be who you were, it's safer there. The work of individuation is never once and for all. It's cyclical, a lifelong dance between forgetting and remembering. The ego forgets, the self remembers. The task is to return again and again to the center. That center is not an image, it's a presence. And when you live from that center, attraction becomes not something you achieve, but something you are.
Eventually, the metamorphosis reaches its most sacred threshold, the rebirth of perception. By now, the world looks different. It is not the external landscape that has changed, but the lens through which you see it. When the self-image collapses and the false identity dissolves, you begin to experience reality without distortion. You no longer seek confirmation of who you are in the eyes of others. You see directly, as if for the first time, that everything you were searching for was always within you. This is the stage of illumination, the albedo, when the psyche begins to shine with its own light. After the long darkness of Negredo, awareness dawns like morning after endless night. The ego, once terrified of surrender, now becomes the servant of the self. Its purpose shifts from control to cooperation. The parts of you that once fought for dominance now move together like the instruments of a symphony. This harmony, invisible but unmistakable, is what others sense as radiance. It is attraction stripped of performance, a vibration of inner wholeness. At this stage, you no longer chase meaning, you embody it. The external world ceases to be a stage for approval and becomes a mirror for presence. When you walk into a room, you no longer ask, "Do they see me?" You wonder instead, "Can I see them clearly?" The shift is profound. Attraction flows not from wanting to be desired, but from seeing the divine in others without losing sight of the divine in yourself. Carl Jung called this the realization of the self, the uniting of opposites into a single integrated being. It is the moment you become the center of your own psychological universe, no longer tossed by the tides of collective opinion or personal insecurity. You become both observer and participant in the drama of life. From the center, the dance of attraction changes entirely. You no longer magnetize through need, you magnetize through meaning. Every human encounter becomes symbolic, archetypal. You begin to notice the eternal patterns moving through your relationships, the teacher, the healer, the shadow, the beloved. No one enters your life by accident. Each carries a fragment of the collective unconscious, awakening in you what still sleeps. The man who betrays you embodies the trickster, revealing where you betray yourself. The friend who supports you carries the archetype of the ally, reminding you of faith in the process. The lover who meets you in truth mirrors your own integration, the sacred union of anima and animus within your soul. And through these encounters, attraction ceases to be something to get and becomes something to learn from. The moment you meet someone, you can sense not just their presence, but the lesson they bring. You begin to ask not, "Will they love me?" but "What part of myself is this connection calling forth?" That question alone turns every relationship into a mirror of awakening. It is here that Stoic wisdom enters like an old friend. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts." When you have purified your inner dialogue, the world begins to mirror your serenity. The things that once triggered you now feel distant, almost transparent. You realize that most conflict is projection, the unconscious demanding to be seen. And so, instead of reacting, you witness. Instead of seeking to control, you allow. This inner freedom, calm but powerful, becomes your new form of attraction. Because now, others are not drawn to what you have, they are drawn to what you are not. Not desperate, not dependent, not fragmented. Your presence offers relief, like cool water to a weary traveler. They feel in you something rare, someone who does not seek to take energy, but to share it. This is the energy of individuation, the energy of one who has come home. To change your self-image in this way is to become transparent to the eternal. You no longer cling to labels, beautiful, worthy, successful, desirable. You wear them lightly, like garments that can be changed without losing your essence. You understand now that attraction is never a performance, but a permission slip, to be fully alive, unapologetically yourself, without distortion. This is the moment of rubido, the reddening, the final stage of alchemy when the soul, purified by darkness and illuminated by awareness, returns to the world with fire in its heart. You are no longer merely a seeker of love, you have become love itself. The lover and the beloved unite within you, and in that unity, everything changes. You walk through life differently now, not because you have learned how to attract, but because you have stopped living in resistance to who you are. Your energy flows freely, your boundaries are natural, not forced. You speak not to impress, but to express. You give not from need, but from abundance.
And this, paradoxically, makes you magnetic beyond measure. People sense the peace in your presence, the quiet confidence of someone who has faced their own abyss and returned whole. You are no longer looking for validation. You have become validation itself. You no longer beg for attention. You are attention, embodied, aware, alive. This is the end of the chase and the beginning of something eternal. The stillness that attracts everything because it needs nothing. Attraction, you now understand, was never about appearance or performance. It was about energy, and energy follows truth. The moment you align your self-image with your true self, you become unstoppable. The universe responds not to what you want, but to what you are. And now, you are whole. Thank you for spending this time with us. Your journey gives life to this channel. Stay with us, and together we'll keep exploring, growing, and discovering the truths that shape the soul. Until the next video, take care, and see you soon.